then returns. With every return, you are a little older, and so is the light you see, but the pattern holds. This is the part of astronomy that feels like a kind hand. The sky is not a puzzle to be solved and set aside. It is a companion you can visit. The more you learn of its facts, the more it rewards you with feeling. Knowing the name of a nebula does not steal its mystery. It adds a note to a chord you already love, and still, beneath all the texture and all the numbers, there is the simple act of lying back and letting the white band pour across you. Somewhere along that band, on a small world with a name we have not learned, another listener may be doing the same, letting their mind drift along their river, counting their truths, thinking their own future, and carrying their own day into the kind night. When you share the river, you share something large without needing to own it. The light is given freely. The time was paid long ago by the stars themselves. If you find your thoughts wandering to distances and durations, let them. Let the mind take a slow walk. Light crossing the space between stars, collapsing gas, warming into stars, planets taking shape from rings of dust, like snowflakes growing on a windowpane, oceans forming, air thickening, creatures lifting their eyes. None of this is rushed. The river has room for slow stories. Your story is one of them. Now the night grows deeper still, and the world grows quieter still, and the river goes on doing what it has done since before there were people. It gathers the light of uncountable suns into a band we can understand at a glance. Not everything has to be solved. Some things are here to be trusted. The Milky Way is one of them. You can rest beneath it without finish lines or arguments. It will still be flowing when you wake. So breathe in and breathe out, and let the quiet river of stars carry you. If your eyes are closed, picture that soft band and the dark lanes braided through it. Picture the bulge low on the horizon, like a slow sunrise of far-off suns. Picture the way it arches up and over, east to west, season to season, age to age. If your eyes are open and lucky enough to be in the dark, let the band have you whole for a minute. Let it make every small noise in your life seem smaller, and every kind thought seem larger. In the end, that is what the river is for. It is a reminder that we live inside something vast and patient and ongoing, and that our days, bright, messy, dear, are carried along by a current we can trust. When you are ready, you may set your raft against the bank and step into sleep. The river will be here when you drift back in the morning. It always is. It always has been. Good night. May the hush of the galaxy be the hush of your room. And may the quiet river of stars guide you gently, steadily, all the way into rest. And now, as the night settles deeper and the world loosens its grip, let us lean into a quieter orbit. Take a slow breath in, let it drift out, and imagine a small, golden circle turning in the dark. No countdowns, no roar of engines, just a record, patient as a heartbeat, sealed to the side of a departing machine. This is our next journey. It begins with a needle and a groove, with a message pressed into metal and launched into forever. Tonight's story is called The Voyager's Golden Record. Picture a room late at night, lights low, a turntable waiting. You lift a record from its sleeve, hold the warm weight in your palms, then set it down. A stylus lowers, a hiss like distant rain. And then, voices, music, thunder and birds. The sound of a mother greeting a child. You are not alone anymore. You are connected by a ribbon of vibrations to the place where the recording happened, to the air that trembled when those words were first spoken. That's what a record can do. Now take that feeling, that thin golden bridge between two moments, and pull it longer, longer, until it spans not a room or an hour, but a solar system and 1,000,000 years. That is the ambition tucked inside two small spacecraft named Voyager. In the late 1970 seconds, two identical probes were guided onto paths that would carry them past the outer giants, Jupiter and Saturn for one, and for its twin, still farther, to Uranus and Neptune. The timing was rare. The big planets happened to line up in a way that allowed each encounter to sling the spacecraft to the next. A gravitational hopscotch called a grand tour. The Voyagers carried cameras and detectors to read magnetic fields and count charged particles, to sniff the chemistry of atmospheres and measure dust. But they also carried something not required by any engineering specification. A phonograph record, plated in gold, tucked into an aluminum case on the spacecraft's body, with instructions etched into the cover. The idea was simple and audacious at once. If anything ever found this craft adrift in the deep dark, the record might be played. It might speak for us. Gold is patient in space. It does not rust or cloud easily. The record itself is copper, gold-plated for endurance. On its jacket, diagrams explain how to use it, how fast to spin it, how to position the stylus, how to decode the pictures stored as a rising and falling signal. A map points back to us, using the pulsing hearts of dead stars' pulsars as waymarkers, their ticking frequencies engraved in a universal unit set by the spin flip of hydrogen. There is even a tiny sample of radioactive material on the cover, so that a careful future reader could measure its decay and know how long the record had been traveling. It is a time capsule that provides its own clock, its own compass, and its own instruction manual. What does it say? Almost everything it can, in the small space, aloud. There are greetings spoken in dozens of languages. Hellos, welcomes, well wishes, small messages of peace sent from a planet that is not always peaceful. There are sounds of Earth, wind, surf, thunder, crickets, footsteps, a heartbeat, a kiss, the machinery of our living tractors in a field, a train crossing a bridge, a rocket trembling a launch pad. There are songs, music from many traditions and centuries, string quartets and choir, blues that aches with cold nights, drums that call to dancing, a bright guitar that once made teenagers in diners move their feet. There is a lone voice saying, "Hello from the children of planet Earth." A sentence so simple and clean that it feels like a lighthouse blink from shore to far sea. There are pictures too, encoded as sound and meant to be retrieved by drawing their lines back out. Images of our bodies and our homes, of mountains and rivers and cities and farms, of a mother and child, of a page of mathematical definitions, of a human hand with a circle scribbled beside it to help with scale. There are scientific diagrams, biochemistry, the structure of DNA, a portrait of our star and its family of worlds. And somewhere in that gallery, there is a photograph of the blue sphere that holds all of this, suspended in black. It is both more than enough and not nearly enough, but it is a start. The two Voyagers rode their rare paths with breathtaking success. They flew by Jupiter and watched its storms roll, and its moons show themselves as worlds in their own right. Volcanic Io, with plumes blooming above its yellow plains. Icy Europa, scored with lines like cracked glass. Ganymede, big enough to have its own magnetic field. Callisto, old and cratered like a memory of the early solar system. They dove by Saturn and saw the rings as a structure, not a band, braided, scalloped, shepherded by moons that carve gaps, the way boats cut channels through ice. One Voyager pressed on to the pale worlds farther still, showing Uranus tilted like a rolling barrel, and Neptune dark-eyed and windy. And Triton, its moon, framed by geysers that wrote weather on an air as thin as a thought. They saw things nobody had seen. Then, after the cameras took a last look home and turned off to save power, the spacecraft kept going. At some uncertain boundary, the sun's breath gives out. The bubble that our star blows into space, our heliosphere ends, and the interstellar medium takes over. The Voyagers pushed through that boundary and reported the change. The direction of magnetic fields shifted, the density of particles altered, the texture of the radio hiss around them changed. Out is not a cliff, but a slow crossing, a gradient from familiar to wider. Out there, their energy comes from a small supply of heat, set free by the decay of a metal inside them, changing to electricity through devices that conduct heat like a one-way street. Every year, power fades. Every year, instruments shut down to keep a few core senses alive. There are long silences now. Sometimes a message is garbled, sometimes a whisper returns. But the craft still move, writing their thin lines through a diagram which no one can hang on a wall except as a metaphor. A map of leaving. Sometime in the far future, even after the last instrument is silent, the records will remain. They will drift with their carriers through a medium that is not quite empty. If no one ever finds them, then the message will have traveled for nothing but our own benefit, because crafting it made us ask, with unusual clarity, who are we, and what do we want to say? That was always part of the point. But there is another possibility that is gentler and strange, that one day, in a time so far ahead that we might as well call it a fairy tale, someone will notice a weak, moving point against their own constellations. They will track and predict and meet. They will bring the patient thing aboard a metal flower long since cold, painted in dust, and they will open the case and consider the diagrams. They will find a stylus included and an image on the cover that shows what to do. They will spin the disc at the speed indicated by a small etched number. They will press the needle into the groove. The first sound will not be words. It will be a thunder of surf and wind and water, camera-shy and ancient, an ocean speaking one syllable in every language. Then perhaps a greeting will arrive in a tongue never heard beyond Earth before. A hidden part of their mind might react without any shared dictionary, because the greeting sounds like a greeting no matter what you know. The cadence of someone addressing someone else with attention. A child's voice may follow. Music will arrive that is built on ratios common to our bones, even if not to our culture. What would they make of a 12-bar blues night? Of a string quartet bidding evening to a rose? Of a voice from the desert singing to dawn? Let the question be a soft horizon line. It's enough at bedtime to look toward it, not to answer it. After sound, pictures, they will feed the signal into a scanner and watch as lines bloom into images. The first is simple, a circle that tells you where the edges are, a calibration to help your eye know what it is seeing, then a page of units, then a tree, a landscape, a city, a mother holding a baby in a way that makes a lump rise in your throat, even if you have never held one, a spectrum of the sun like a barcode, the DNA double helix climbing a ladder of numbers, the chemical alphabet of life, a handshake, a grocery store, a photo of a schoolroom where someone drew a triangle and called it truth. It's not everything, but it's our handwriting in the margin of the universe, legible to anyone who is patient with puzzles. Now come back for a moment to the tabletop with the turntable and the soft light. Imagine that it's you who is the one finding the record, because in a way, every time you remember that it exists, every time you play in your mind what it contains, you are the receiver at the edge of the dark. What does the record say about us? It tells of our curiosity, the way we cannot help pointing lenses at things and asking them to give up their secrets. It tells of our variety, many languages, many rhythms, many rituals to navigate joy and grief. It tells of our technical discipline we can measure. We can etch a map with pulsars and trust that anyone who can travel across the void can read it. It tells of a small humility too. Tucked among the confident diagrams are the sounds of frogs and rain and laughter, as if to admit that what really matters about us is not only what we know, but how we live. The record is a mirror. It reminds us that to be human is to hold the world in your ear for a while and listen. The cover art is itself a poem. On the left, a setting showing how to play the disc, how to drop the stylus, which side to choose, how to set the speed. Above, a clock tick drawn from the atom most common in the universe, so that anyone with a physics and a radio can reconstruct our unit of time. On the right, a map of pulsing lighthouses, their tick rates etched in the same time unit, so that triangulation from a few will point to the place where the record was launched. At the bottom, an outline of the disc and its stylus, with the stylus drawn in a different position to represent time passing during playback. It is all very practical and at the same time very beautiful, like the diagram of a musical instrument a careful maker might draw. Who chose the contents? People with different expertises sat together and argued kindly about what could not be left out. A physicist who had sent messages before. A writer with a fierce tenderness for life. Musicians and linguists and scientists who kept asking, "Do we have room for this? What about this?" They were limited not just by space measured in minutes and megabytes, but by the reality that every inclusion is an exclusion. For every song there is 1,000 not included. For every picture, 1,000 lives just outside the frame. They did their best. If, one day, you are awake at 3 a.m. and feeling like a gnat on a window pane looking out at a rainstorm, it can be steadying to remember that a small committee of humans worked very hard to give the universe a fair sample of what it feels like to be us. Perhaps you've heard of one last photograph. A Voyager took a portrait of home from far away, where our planet is a pale dot caught in a shaft of scattered sunlight. Even if you haven't, you can feel what such a view would do to a person. The way it presses the breath out of you without panic, leaving you lighter. The record carries that same perspective, but in sound. The great faraway made intimate. You put your ear to a circle of metal, and a breeze moves through the leaves of a tree you will never sit beneath. You hear the fluting of a bird whose name you do not know, and you do not need to know. A single voice says hello, and you are a little less alone. There is a quiet, practical courage in sending a record into the dark. It admits that we are not the center of everything. It admits we may not be listened to. It admits we want to be known anyway. It is the act of a species that sometimes sets a table for a guest who might never arrive, simply because that is who we hope to be. A record is a table. A groove is a plate. A stylus is a knife and a fork negotiating warmth from something that was cold when you set it down. Let's imagine an unwrapping, then, on a world not our own. A being like us in curiosity and different from us in almost everything else kneels beside the artifact. They puzzle out the diagrams and, with a few false starts, they coax the first audio out of the groove. They smile, or whatever their version of smiling is, because the messiness of analog comes through. A pop here, a hiss there, the voice of a singer riding a ribbon of noise like a surfer on a break. They adjust. The music steadies. Then, maybe because this is what music does, they look up from the machine and out into the open. And something about the line of their horizon looks kinder for a moment. They have just learned that somewhere else, minds arrange sound to make time feel less lonely. They do not know our words for it, but they know what it is. If the record is found not by strangers but by none at all, it will continue on, slumbering in a black that is never truly empty. It will outlast mountains on Earth, and languages, and perhaps our species. It will travel through regions of space, where the density of atoms is a handful per cubic centimeter, then through fluffier deserts between spiral arms, then perhaps brush against a tendril of gas licking out from a passing star. It will warm slightly as it passes invisible fields, then cool slightly, keeping its counsel. The message does not care. The message is content to be available, to exist as an offering beyond the reach of the offered. Sometimes, when people speak of this record, they argue. Should we advertise ourselves? Should we have said more? Should we have asked less? These are reasonable worries, because the world is not a perfect host for its own inhabitants. Why would the universe be kinder? But there is a different symmetry to consider. When you tuck a note in a bottle and set it on the tide, you are not merely hoping for an answer, you are naming yourself to yourself. You are saying, I am the kind of being, How writes, who hopes, who greets. The record says this about us. We are makers of grooves and listeners to echoes, builders of diagrams and tellers of jokes. We are a family, as primitive and as refined as that word implies. So let the night stretch thin now. Let the turntable in your mind spin. Listen as the track list steps from thunder to a child's voice, from heartbeat to horn, from a crackling campfire to a violin, tracing the outline of a horizon you can't see but recognize. The room you're in, bed, pillow, window, takes on the comforting attention of a spacecraft's small body. Instruments stowed, systems powering down, the golden disk secured. Somewhere, many times farther than you have ever traveled, two such bodies are still coasting, long past the last planet, carrying the warm proof that we tried to say hello. And when your eyes start to close, picture that etched cover, the hydrogen clock, the map of pulsing stars, the diagram of the player, the invitation written in geometry. Imagine a hand from far away following those lines centuries from now, with the patient curiosity of the best readers. Imagine the first ounce of sound spilling into a room that has never known Earth. Imagine the pause afterward, the most human of all silences, the one that means, "I heard you." Then let your breath make that silence in your own room. Now, softly, we have reached the outer edge of our little tale. The turntable slows, the stylus lifts, the record moves back into its sleeve. The spacecraft keeps going, small and faithful, turning its golden ornament to the stars like a locket. You are here, on a blue world where wind has its own music, and morning will return. You can sleep, knowing that somewhere in the dark, our best hello is still on its way. Good night, traveler. Good night, record. And to you, listening in the quiet, thank you for keeping watch with me until the end of this track. Okay, this journey of galaxy end here. Hello there, and welcome to Bedtime Universe. Tonight, we turn our eyes and our curiosity toward one of the rarest discoveries of our age. A faint traveler slipping through our skies, a quiet messenger that did not grow up beneath our Sunday. Astronomers have given it a name you may soon learn to recognize: 3I Atlas. It is not a comet of the familiar family that circles our star. It is an object from somewhere else entirely. Another stellar neighborhood, another time, another set of conditions that shaped its dust and ice. For a brief while, by chance and by the careful watching of telescopes, a piece of a distant